Next up, we have the letter E. We're going to start with a capital. The E starts at the top of the X space. So what we do is we start at the top of the X space, we curve forward along the top of the X, curve up to the top of the header, pull down and curve into the middle of the X space, curve back around, pull down, curve back up and in. That is an E. Let's do that one more time. Getting a little more ink. Start at the top of the X space, curve around, up to the header, around, down into the middle of the X, around and down to the bottom of the X space, and then curve in. Again, top of the X, we curve around, up to the header, pull down to the middle of the X, around and back out, down to the bottom of the X, and up and in. One more time, we are going to start at the top of the X, curve around, up to the header, down and into the middle of the X, around and back down to the bottom of the X, then up and in. Again, we're going to go from the top of the X, around and up into the header, around, pull down and around to the middle of the X, around and down to the bottom of the X, before going up and in. One last time, getting more ink. We're going to go from the top of the X, around, up to the header, pull down into the middle of the X, back out and around, down to the bottom of the X, and up and in. Go ahead and give that a try all the way across your page. Once you have done a full line of capital E's, move on to a lowercase e. This E is pretty simple. I'm going to grab a little more ink on my pen. I'm going to start in the middle of the X. I'm going to go up to the top of the X, curve around, pull down, curve up. It's that simple. I'm going to start at the middle of the X, curve up to the top of the X, pull down and around, and curve out. I'm going to grab a little more ink. Start at the middle of the X, curve up to the top of the X, pull down, curve around. You'll notice this looks kind of like a calligraphy C, but it's narrower. That's the key difference. Middle of the X, up to the top of the X, pull down, curve around. Again, start at the middle of the X, curve up to the top of the X, curve around, curve out, and go up a little bit. Again, I'm going to start in the middle of the X, curve up, pull back down, curve around. One last time, I'm going to start in the middle of the X, push up to the top of the X, curve around, and pull down, curve out at the bottom of the X. Go ahead and finish that full line of lowercase e's, and then you can move on to the next video.